Yo, 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 ho, 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 YouTube. I've been asked a few times by some subscribers to the channel, why do I super collect Brett Favre? What does he mean to me? Why would anyone want to collect him years after he's done playing? Obviously, most know about his stats, some of his family, things like that. He's definitely a known player. He's a quarterback and all that good stuff. But why do I collect Brett Favre? So today, I'm going to share that story. Hope you enjoy it. Check it out. So why Brett Favre? Well, what I can tell you is I do live in Green Bay. However, I am not a Packers fan. So it's not because he played for the Green Bay Packers. It's for my own personal experiences and the age when Brett came here, my age when Brett came here, and those were a lot of the years where I was finding out who I wanted to be. And he had some influence on that. So that's why I super collect Brett Favre. And this is a little bit of that story. So in 1991, I was 13 years old. The Packers were barely a thought in the back of my mind. They hadn't been good for years and years and years. They obviously had their championship years in the 50s and 60s, and everyone knew Bart Starr and Ray Nitschke and Paul Hornung and all those players and what they had done to build that sport. The stadium was here. You'd see some players around town. I actually got to wear Brett Starr's ring one time when we were at a Hardee's. A lot of times when we were kids and we would go to a restaurant, the parents would sit at one table and me and my sisters would sit at another table. Well, I happened to be sitting across the table from Bart Starr. I can't remember who he was with, if he was with another player or what, but he was wearing one of his Super Bowl rings. And I was just in awe of that. And, he looked at me and noticed that I was looking at him and realized who he was. I was pretty little at the time, maybe 5 or 7, somewhere in there. And he let me try it on. So that was pretty amazing. I didn't realize, really the depth of it at the time. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that was a kind of a cool moment for me in my life with living here and what the Packers have meant to Green Bay. But anyway, in 91, the Packers weren't really a thing. They hadn't won any playoff games. They didn't really have an identity. They didn't have good coaching, no good quarterbacks, things like that. Well, Ron Wolf came, and he was set to try to rebuild the team into a championship caliber team. So one of his biggest acts was to trade for Brett Favre. Now, Green Bay at this time was a town of about 100,000 people. Somewhere around 90 to 100,000 people. So we didn't have that much going on. This isn't a New York or an LA where there were, a team in the town was just an added piece of entertainment. It was kind of a big deal to Green Bay. Now, again, I'm not a huge football fan. I played soccer growing up, but I did understand what the Green Bay football team would mean to a lot of people here. So Ron Wolf came in 91. He brought Brett Favre here in 92. Now, that was an interesting choice because he was pretty unproven. His first few games in Atlanta, he'd thrown basically interceptions or sky balls over everybody's head. He could throw balls into the rafters. He was sort of a bit of a sideshow there. So obviously, Ron Wolf knew something that hardly anybody else did, taking the chance and getting him to come to Green Bay. It was a good move in the sense that Brett didn't really have a home in Atlanta, and so he was kind of willing to go anywhere where he could play. It's extremely difficult in Green Bay to get star players to come here or big name players to come here because who wants to play in little old Green Bay? So he pretty much knew he had to take a chance on some guy that, drank beer and was in a car accident a couple of years ago and had a lot of his intestine removed. Lots of these bad things that was kind of out of shape, and some negatives to try and get a franchise quarterback. But what he did know was Brett had an amazing arm and a pretty much unmatchable will to win. And those have a ton of value, especially when you've got a team that has been improving, but it just needs something to get over that hill and have a real thrust and drive to win. So I had gotten to see him play, obviously early on in his career, and I was in just complete awe of what he could do. I had a very unique perspective on watching Brett's play. My dad was a member of the Packers band for many, many years. Yes, before they just played pop tunes on a speaker, many of the teams had actual bands. So I was fortunate enough when I was coming into my high school years that I was offered the opportunity to be the band setup guy, whatever you want to call me. And I would go get the equipment out of the visitors' locker room area and bring it down to the field and set it up. So the music stands, the speakers, the microphones, things like that. And then I would get to watch the game on the sidelines. So it's a pretty unique opportunity. And I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. We had our own heaters on the sideline for the cold games. I had plenty of room to stretch out. So, I could run off I didn't have much responsibilities during the game, so I could watch it. I could run off and get some food, things like that. After the games, I would go put all the equipment away, which was right off the visitors' locker room. As a matter of fact, it was kind of like the media room. So when you see the opposing quarterback or coach or whatever at a podium doing an interview in those 90s years before stadium renovations at Lambeau, that was the room that I was in with all my stuff. So there were many times when the game would get done and the interviews were being done right away, and I would have to kind of sneak in that room with huge amplifiers and bags of drum equipment and things like that to put that away. And I had to be as quiet as possible because there was, media in there conducting interviews. So it was a very, very strange thing. I'm very certain that that's not how it's arranged these days since they've renovated things at Lambeau. But anyway, watching Brett right from the sidelines was crazy. So I really got to see the full speed of the game and the things that he could do. And heck, there were plenty of times where he was, running off the sidelines right in front of me. Obviously, this was the age before cell phones. Otherwise, I would have an amazing catalog of photographs and things of some of those experiences. But sadly, I don't. I was working. I was being professional. But anyway, he, I even got to see that home championship game against, I think it was Carolina, and before to go to the Super Bowl. So I got to see some pretty cool games that he was involved in. So I think that added to some degree to my enjoying his performances and looking at him as a entertainer in the league. The way he could throw, he took chances, he ran around, he extended plays, he would shovel pass, he would backhand stuff. I mean, he did things that no quarterback had ever done before. So I had finally found entertainment in football. I don't take it that seriously. I'm not that big into the sport. I like to be entertained. So I'm a movie buff, big Star Wars fan. I like that type of production and way to spend my time. I'm not that into the sport the way it is. Okay, so I like it to be more creative and more entertaining and go, whoa, how did he just do that? So that was something that that I really enjoyed watching him play. But he was a lot more than that. So he became a big star here very quickly, and he was on the news all the time and things like that. But I really came to appreciate all the things he did that was outside of his majestic play. He was a stand-up dude. He definitely made mistakes, but he owned up to them and he tried to make them right. He was a good family man. He played hurt all the time, sometimes probably to the negative for his team, but he always saw it as, I can provide something to help them win. I'm going to play. He took plenty of chances. The NFL was pretty boring up to that point. It was kind of a running game. You didn't have a quarterback who would try to throw a ball 100 miles an hour and split two defenders, throw the ball 90 yards down the field, stuff like that. And he always did everything he could to win. He didn't care if the next day he was going to be blamed because he tried to make a tight throw and they could have blamed the loss on something else. He wanted to be the guy to get the glory and the blame. So he would take that chance on that throw. And sometimes, of course, that burned him. But a lot of times, it's easier to remember those to some degree. But a lot of times, he was the one who was the reason they won. So again, back to the point that I'm not a football fan. I'm a Brett Favre fan. And that's why I super collect Brett Favre. Now, of course, I appreciate other players. I think Barry Sanders was the most amazing running back, and he was entertaining and different than just about any other player that I'd seen in the NFL. But nobody was as exciting to watch as Brett Favre. He made it fun to watch. You loved everything that came with football, winning, losing, the whole part of it, the camaraderie with teammates, all that kind of stuff. I think he would have played the game for free. Obviously, he didn't. He was paid well, especially in his later years. But he's probably one of the only players in history I can think of that played for fun. He just really enjoyed the game. The paycheck was a nice bonus for him. He was just born and bred to play that game and play it as hard and as long and as well as he could. Now, again, back to his personal life, he's made plenty of poor choices. Choices I would never make myself, that I certainly don't condone. However, when people make mistakes, we shouldn't judge them for the mistake. We should judge them for what they do in that aftermath. How do they handle it? Do they just deny it? Do they say, it was no big deal, it's just me, or oh, these are just boys in a locker room, kind of thing. He didn't do that. He said, if he didn't do it, he would say, hey, I didn't do it. But if he did, he would say, I screwed this one up, and this is what I'm going to do. Just like, the pain pills, that incident when he was in Green Bay and he had to go to rehab and get himself, some help and things like that. So I always appreciated someone who, especially when you're a role model. Now, these players can say all day long, well, I don't play football to be a role model, but you're there, you're seen, these kids look up to you, you are a role model. You need to take some responsibility for that. It's no different than a artist who's being seen by millions, things like that. You have to understand that some of your decisions are going to be seen by impressionable minds. So the other thing I really liked about Brett over most of the other players, especially at that time, was how he would share his personal stories and his personal life. We all know who his wife is. We know his kids. We certainly know his mom, and probably most importantly, his dad and his relationship with his dad. He never shied away from, sharing those relationships and thanking his family and friends for what they have done for him. And I mean, the biggest one we can think of is with his dad, when his dad passed away, and that next night, that Monday Night Football game. To me, that is the greatest game I've ever seen in football. Now, obviously, he's won a Super Bowl. That was a pretty big game, you know, 5 touchdown pass games, things like that. But that game was something truly special that I don't think would ever get duplicated by another player. And let's not forget the fact that he was playing at the LA Raiders, which is a known hostile environment to opponents, and they were all cheering for him. Many of the people in the stands had signs that said, you know, we feel for you and we're sorry for your loss. And, you know, the fans really put an effort in to make him know that they cared and they understood that, you know, that's a bigger part of life than football. But in the same light, Brett knew that he had to play, because he had to show how he could honor his dad. And it was important to meet his dad's wishes, which was to play football. He was a tough guy. He would push Brett and challenge him, if you will. So he knew that that's what his dad would tell him if he was there. I don't think I've ever seen that with another player, where opposing fans even are in support of that player's friends and family and what they have going on in their personal life. Not that I don't think fans care about other players or would do that for another player, but they just weren't as personal and loved and having their family shared like he did. Now, he was definitely, as I've said earlier, not a perfect man. We saw a lot of his struggles right, you know, in front of our eyes, which again, we don't normally see with other players. His wife's breast cancer, some of his mom's struggles, things like that. Those were all things that, while we were growing with him, those were things he was growing with. He was knocked down a lot, but he played through. He became, you know, a grown-up, responsible man, and worked very hard to be that type of person. So those are the main reasons why I'm a Brett Super Collector. Some of the additional things are the obvious ones. His statistics, he held many of the passing records for a few years before Peyton Manning, you know, took over many of those. And records are meant to be broken anyway. However, I also think Brett is a great investment in cards, because I think he holds a record that no one will ever beat. That consecutive game streak is impossible, especially in today's game, where players don't play with concussions. They're not just getting shots to cover up injuries. Many times, teams have more than one quarterback that have starting skill sets. So they can simply, okay, this guy's out, we can insert another quarterback. Heck, look at this year. Some of the starting quarterbacks haven't been able to play because of, you know, contracting COVID or being in contact with it. So there's just too many things in play now to ever see that record fall, in my opinion. To some degree, I think it should be comparable to Cal Ripken's streak. I don't think Cal Ripken's streak's ever going to be broken either. That's his biggest claim to fame. He doesn't hold a bunch of statistical records or anything like that. But the guy was an Iron Man. He played forever, and he never missed a game. And that does have something of value. That does show people, you know, hard work, ethic, putting things aside to be a professional and do your best job for a long period of time. I mean, I think the average career in the NFL alone is maybe 3 years. And so to play for 17 years without missing a game, or however long it was, is, to me, just crazy. And I don't think it's anything we will ever see. So I think long term, that's something that's going to be highly appreciated. It's sort of, I think Cal was appreciated right away for his Iron Man status, if you will. But I think it's increased with him over time. It becomes more appreciated as a player gets removed from a game and their record or their stats stand well after their time done compared to, the current players now, which should be just re-breaking all those records, which is what we're seeing with passing records and touchdown records and number of games played and things like that. But 15, 20, 30 years later, when you're still the player standing there with the record and not much competition to beat it, it starts to really gain some traction where people go, man, this was something. I don't know that we're ever going to see it. So I think that that's something that is slightly overlooked and will add to his legacy, which sometimes translates into value. Now, he is hobby collectible as well. There are many collectors of Brett Favre. I'm certainly not the only one, hence why I'm trying to serve that type of collector. It's really no different than a super collector of Michael Jordan or LeBron James or something like that. This is just the player that means something to me, and this is a way that I can keep a reminder of, how that person had influenced me. So the other angle to that is he has a ton of cards. He was a good player for a super long period of time. He's won 3 MVPs, a Super Bowl. He has accolades that generally attach to people wanting cards. So he hasn't played since 2010, and there's almost every set that came out this year has a Brett Favre card in it in one shape or another. Some of them have 4 or 5 different cards. So it's something that you can collect for a long period of time. Unlike a lot of the current players, when they're gone, you're not going to see anything of them anymore unless they had an amazing impact on the game. So yes, I like the new hot the new hot rookie and the guy who had a breakout game. I like buying those cards too. And I hold cards of plenty of other players, but they don't have the value to me that the Brett Favre cards do. And I don't see another person in the professional sport that, offered and gave us what he did when he was playing. So I hope you all enjoyed this video and have a little more background on why I collect what I collect. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, ring the bell if you want to be notified. And I'm happy to bring you more videos. And yes, many of them will be about Mr. Favre, because that is my main PC and how I am trying to make a dent in the hobby, as well as him being my favorite player. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear them from you. If you have any comments, that would be great as well. Otherwise, have a happy holidays, and we'll see you again real soon.